All right. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Thursday evenings are kind of a fun evening for me, anyways, because we've been studying other religions. We start out with a little guided meditation, which we just completed, and now we've been studying a book called Ecology and Religion the past few months. And we've kind of branched off here thanks to folks desiring to study a little bit about Judaism. And I'm a novice when it comes to Judaism, but however, there's some teachings within Judaism that I think we should become familiar with, even if we're not experts in Judaism. I think we can all of us, whether we're religious or not, we should learn something about Judaism for many reasons. But the reason I would like to share about this evening is this very famous Jewish theologian named Martin Buber. And he wrote a book called I and Thou. You guys have heard of this? Yeah.
I actually pulled it back out last week and started reading it again.
Oh,
I saw that. I said, "Oh, yeah."
oh my goodness, you did. Yeah. So we're gonna dive into Martin Buber, and I'm gonna make just a brief comparison between him and Dogen. There's some stuff in here. I read this book when I was in my fourth year of college, and it's dense philosophy, really. And I read it again. I have some pages marked. I read it again maybe a couple of years ago, just briefly, not the whole thing, but parts of it. I thought, wow, this sounds like Zen. So we're going to check it out. But I want to start out by offering a brief PowerPoint here on kind of an overview of Martin Buber. So let me share my screen. Here we go. All right. So Martin Buber. So his years are 1878 to 1965. And basically there is this concept that he articulates called the I-thou relationship, and he compares it to the what's called the I-it relationship. And we'll get into that a little bit in just a moment. But just to kind of keep those concepts in mind, I, thou, and I, it. That's kind of what we're going to focus on. All right. And these are some definitions of what an I, thou relationship is, and what an I, it relationship is. And like I said, these are just the definitions, and we'll look at some of his actual writing on these two relationships. All right, so the I-thou relationship is one of intimacy, of kindness, of mutuality, trust, sharing. There's no hate in an I-thou relationship. It's a relationship between subjects rather than a relationship between a subject and an object, right? That would be an I-it relationship. An I-it relationship is characterized by manipulation. It's utilitarian. It's how can I use somebody else or something else? It's exploitative, right? It's demonization of the other. Those are just some qualities of the I-it relationship. So let's go right into his writing. Let's go right into his writing. Vicky, I'm curious, has your rabbi friend talked anything about Martin Buber?
He brought up the name, I think last week, which
Oh
is
yeah.
odd that was odd that it kind of corresponded to this, but it was mentioned in passing. There was no deep, the subject didn't come up for discussion.
Okay, what did he say about him?
So I'm trying to remember. I think he just kind of mentioned it in passing that these are important people to read and important influencers, something along those lines.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Good. I don't know how much we might need another week on him. We'll see. Because there's too many pages here. We're probably gonna do this in a 2-week thing. But let's see how far we can get. We don't have to rush it. Yeah, this is about 7 pages of stuff. So yeah, we're not going to get through all this in one evening, but we will we'll do our best to take our time. It's better to take our time and not try to learn too much. Let's see. Open. There we go. Where'd you go? All right. All right, so let's start us out reading this. This is the beginning. This is just the opening of I and Thou. Now, keep in mind the translator. So Martin Buber is German. If we go back to his years, if you look at the years, he lived, I didn't realize this at the time I was studying him in college, but he lived through the Holocaust, and he's German. I think the Holocaust must have had, like, on so many Jewish people, the Holocaust had a profound influence on how they understand the world, how they understand God. Our last class, we looked at different Jewish perspectives on God, and we also considered that the Holocaust and anti-Semitism are huge factors for how Jewish thoughts about God have developed and changed over the centuries. And I think Martin Buber is an incredible contributor to Jewish ideas around God. So now you'll notice here, the book is called I and Thou, but the translator of the German he made a choice to use the word you instead of the word thou in this particular translation. So you'll see the word the word pair I, you referred to here, but it's the same. It's just a choice in translation. All right, so let's begin here. I'll read the first couple of paragraphs, and I'm going to pass it to my right here to Heather. You're welcome to read. If not, you're welcome to pass it on to the next person. All right. Oh yeah. Feel free to pass it on if you want. The world is twofold. Again, this translation is of man. We can use the word human to keep it gender neutral here as much as possible. The world is twofold for humans, for people, in accordance with their twofold attitude. The attitude of people is twofold in accordance with the two basic words she or he or they can speak. So Martin Buber he's distilling all of our choices down to two, basically here. And the way that they get expressed in language is through these two word pairs. We just mentioned them: I, thou, and I, it. All right. All right. The basic words. Yeah, feel free to pass.
How far should I?
Just maybe to the end of that section.
Okay. The basic words are not single words, but word pairs. One basic word is the word pair I, you. The other basic word is the word pair I, it. But this basic word is not changed when he or she takes the place of it. Thus, the I of man is also twofold. for the I of the basic word I, you is different from that in the basic word I, it.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we need to really take this language slow. As you can see, it's hard to get I don't know about you, but if I read this too quickly, I'm not going to get it. And even when I read it slow, I'm having to reread it. Right? So what do we just read here? One basic word pair is I, you. The other one is I, it. And he uses these, my understanding is that he makes it the relationship is central. We talked a little bit about this last week, the idea of being in relationship with others, that this relationship is central. All right. And that we can't actually live outside of relationship. We don't exist outside of, I'm going to add that here. I think this is implied, but we don't exist outside of a relationship pair, which just cuts into this idea of individualism, that we exist as individuals. We don't, right? We exist in relationship with others, whether it's with our families in some ways, our friends, our colleagues at work, whether it's with the natural world. We're in relationship with everything. Okay. Let's see, Vicky, you want to read the next sentence, and then I'll bring up the next page.
Basic words do not state something that might exist outside them. By being spoken, they establish a mode of existence. I'm going to stop right now because I don't understand what that says. Basic words do not state something that might exist outside them.
Yeah. Basic words. So basic words do not that might exist outside them. In other words, when we're talking about, let's say, the basic word, one basic word is the word pair, I, you. So you got to go back to the previous section, right? There's two basic words that we can speak, right? The basic word, the first basic word pair, one of them is the I, you. That's a relationship, right? Okay, so think about that one, what he's calling a basic word, I, you, or I, it, does not state something that might exist outside of them. We're talking about something concrete here. We're talking about the relationship between two, right? It's not concrete. There's not something outside of that relationship. And this is, I think, in alignment with Zen in regards with the idea that not staying inside of the present moment, not getting lost in thoughts about something, right? That, I think, that might be a loose connection with Zen practice. Right? How do we enter into the present moment? By letting go of thoughts. Right? Does that make sense?
That's not exactly what I see.
Tell us
but to me, that sentence, what I see is that the words are not the thing. They're just kind of like we were talking about last week, about just to portray it in literary form is to, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, just to portray it in literary form is to stain it with defilement. That you're not really describing something outside of yourself. It doesn't exist just because you speak it. That's the way it allows you to compartmentalize right. And communicate about it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so this is where Zen, I think, might split off from this mode of thinking that we're into right now, and that is exactly what you said, Vicky. Is that as soon as we start to use words where we are not in the reality of things. But we need to put that kind of way of thinking aside, I think, if we want to understand Buber to a certain degree. Because I think he is trying to point to something that is not conceptual, that is real. And we have to, if we're looking at this through a Zen lens, we might get pulled or caught in the idea that he's using of word or word pair. Because when we study Zen, we start to question language and that. I'm going to suggest, though, here that this is a somewhat different orientation for us. So, anyways, let's read on a little bit and see what else he says about it.
Okay.
Just to put aside for now the Zen idea of you can't capture things in literary form. That's certainly true. And there's something else. So we just need to put that aside for now, I think.
Okay.
All right. Let me grab the next page here. Somebody's got a bird there.
Oh, that's probably the robins outside. Yeah.
Very nice. All right. Here's the next piece. Vicky, you want to?
Okay, so
just go to the
Yeah.
end of the section, please.
basic words are spoken with one's being. When one says you, the I of the word pair IU is said to. When one says it, the I of the word pair I it is said to. The basic word IU can only be spoken with one's whole being. The basic word I it can never be spoken with one's whole being.
All right. This word, this whole being. This is Dogen. Dogen also he communicates in a similar way, I feel, when he talks about doing something with your whole being. When you're engaged in any activity that you're in, whatever activity you happen to be in, be 100% in that activity. Does that make sense? Have you heard that before? Have you guys heard that before, Zen teaching?
Yeah,
Right? That you should do something wholeheartedly?
wholeheartedly. Yeah, absolutely.
To engage wholeheartedly in what you're doing. In fact, that's what we've been studying in the mornings. This calligraphy, practicing calligraphy here. Practice, let's see, this sincere and devoted conduct. I don't know if you guys can see this here.
Mhm.
Sincere and devoted practice with sincerity and devotion with whatever it is that you're doing, right? I think this is, put your whole self into what you're doing as a mode of being. And Buber here is saying basic words. Now, when he's saying this word spoken, I think he's using this in a non-literal way. He's not talking about language like we usually think of it here. Basic words are spoken with one's being. When one says you, the I of the word pair IU is said. Again, this is a relationship. Remember the qualities of the I, thou, or the IU relationship. Remember those qualities, right? We are speaking in every moment, even when we're silent. We're speaking by the way in which we are interacting with those around us. So if we are in a deeply caring relationship, even if there's no words being spoken literally, there is communication taking place. There is words being spoken, not in the literal sense, but something is being spoken there. All right.
So, but
yeah,
does that mean though that the I, it can never be spoken with one's whole being because it creates separation? And when you create separation, you are, you're putting yourself above or whatever, and then you think you're cut off and you're
right.
deluded.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't do it. It's impossible by definition. Right?
That makes sense.
We basically live in two different modes. One mode is I thou, and the other mode is I it. And he's just calling attention to the way that we are interacting in our daily lives with others. He's just calling attention to that. We can interact in a manipulative way, or we can interact in a caring way. Both of those create sound, right? In a sense, from this, I'm thinking we're constantly emitting sound or language, whether we're speaking words or not. We're constantly emitting something, some vibration. Okay, let's go on to the next section there. So he's going to just elaborate a little bit more. Navab, you want to read this? Thanks.
Is it there is no, okay.
Yeah.
There is no I as such, but only the I of basic word I, you, and the I of the basic word I, it. When a man says I, he means one or the other. The I, he, or person means is present when person says I, and when person says you or it, the I of one or the other basic word is also present. Being I and saying I are the same. Saying I and saying one of the two basic words are the same. Whoever speaks one of the basic words enters into the word and stands in it.
All right. So this is, again, no self. This is in Zen, we would call it, I think we would refer to this, what he's saying here, as no self. There is no I as such. There's no I that's separate, but only the I of the basic word I, you, and of the basic word I, you. Those are the only that, you want to winnow down our relationships. They're those two. Keep in mind, a loving relationship can turn into an I-it relationship. So it's not like you have a solid relationship there, and vice versa. And a manipulative relationship can become a caring relationship from one moment to the next. In any case, we find ourselves in these relationships, these basic. We're in either one or the other. So it's it really makes it, in some ways, the language is difficult to understand, but in some ways, it really simplifies our choices in front of us. How do we want to be in this moment? It really makes it simple. We don't have to be too complex about this. When a person says I, she, he, or they, means one or the other. In other words, it or thou. All right. When one is present, the other has to be present. You can't have one without the other. You can't have an I without a thou. You can't have an I without an it. All right. You guys got this? Is this second section okay here? Shall we go on, try the next section? Are we doing on time? Just about 9 minutes here. All right. Seikai, would you like to read this evening?
I'll do my best. So, starting from the life, is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The life of a human being does not exist merely in the sphere of a globe. Excuse me. goal-directed verbs. It does not consist merely of activities that have something for their object. I perceive something. I feel something. I imagine something. I want something. I sense something. I think something. The life of a human being does not consist merely of all of this. And it's like at the end of, at the end, and it's like is the basis of realm of it. But the realm of you has no other basis.
Okay. All this, thank you, Sekai. Wonderful. Really appreciate you reading that. All this and its like is the basis of the realm of it. So the above, what we just read there, this is I feel something, I imagine something, right? I sense something. This is the realm of the I-it relationship. When we think in these terms of I, right, of what I am experiencing. But then he says the realm of you has another basis. And now here's where I want to bring in Dogen once again. In the beginning of the Genjo Koan, he writes that you go forward and experience myriad things is delusion. Right? That's how we usually think of ourselves, as I'm having this experience, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That Dogen's language is different, but Martin Buber would say, Dogen's language is, in his language, he's saying that particular way of thinking about the world, I experience this, etc., that's delusion. Buber says that's an I-it relationship. Right? It's an I-it relationship. The I-thou relationship is different. Right? No, starting to cook a little bit, starting to warm up here. Is this making sense? All right.
Yeah, to me, it sounds kind of like the beginning, where it sounds like, one is waking up and then trying to acknowledge something else outside of oneself. But it seems like it's, going back and forth, where when you think outside of yourself, it almost seems kind of like selfish. I don't know if that makes any sense.
When you think outside of yourself, your words got garbled there. It also.
Oh, sorry. When you think out of yourself, just, think about your own perceptions and experiences and everything. And then it just kind of seems a bit selfish, but, that's just kind of what I'm gaining from, the reading and everything.
Yeah. All right. Selfish. I think that's what you said. Yeah, it seems kind of selfish. Yeah. All right. Okay. Jocelyn, you want to read the next piece here? Or how do you want to give it a try?
Hold it really far away. I can read it. No, I can't.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. Do you want a magnifying glass? I got one up here.
I left my purse in the car.
Okay.
So,
No problem.
Whoever says you does not have something for his object. For wherever there is something, there is also another something. Every it borders on other its. It is only by virtue of bordering on others. But where you is said there is no something, you has no borders. Whoever says you does not have something, he has nothing, but he stands in relation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very
No
Buddhist.
yeah, very much no separation.
Oh
Very
my
much.
God.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to read that again. Let's just chew on that. Whoever says you does not have something for his, her, or their object. Right? For wherever there is something, there is also another something. Every it borders on other its, right? These sense of boundaries. I am I, you are you, right? Every it has a boundary. It is only by virtue of bordering on others. Oh, it, right? It only exists because there's these borders. Well, only by virtue of bordering on others. Right? We create these artificial boundaries between ourselves and others. But where you or thou is said, there is no something. You has no borders. This is all beings, right? What are we? All beings. All beings manifest through the self. That would be Zen terminology. This is the perspective of the Buddha, right? The perspective of sentient beings, the perspective of delusion is this perspective of borders. The perspective of the Buddha is this perspective of no borders. Or how Dogen says it, to study the way is to study the self, to study the self is to forget the self, to forget the self is to be one with the myriad things. To be one with the myriad things is to realize no boundaries between self and other. Right? This is Zen. That's how we would say it in Zen language. So Martin Buber, he says, but where you is said, there is no something, you has no borders. Whoever says you does not have something, he or she or they have nothing, but they stand in relation. And again, coming back to this idea that we don't exist outside of relationship. Okay, well, let's again, I don't want to rush through this. Let's stop it there for this evening. There's more to read, I think would be beneficial. So let's plan on doing that next week. I will say, okay, let me end the recording here. Thank you.